Good morning, students. Today we will study Parkinson's disease. Now, Parkinson's disease is a disease which is also known as shaking palsy. It has also been given a term which is called as paralysis agitans. Now, shaking palsy, as the name itself tells us, that the person seems to be shaking all the time, fine, and he cannot control it himself. So, now let us try to define this condition. It is a neurodegenerative condition in which there is loss of dopaminergic neurons. It is a progressive and irreversible neurological condition. Now let us see what does this term mean. It is neurodegenerative. That means that there is loss of or degeneration of neurons takes place. Of which neurons? Which produce dopamine. Fine. So it is a progressive. Progressive here it means it progresses. That is, it condition deteriorates through a period of time. It is irreversible. You cannot reverse it. Fine. It is a neurological condition. It is a condition which is characterized by a clinical syndrome. Its presentation is, it has got typical features of tremors, akinesia or bradykinesia, rigidity and postural instability. Tremors basically means shaking of movements. Akinesia means, kinesia is for motion, A means lack of motion. Bradykinesia means slowness of motion. Rigidity is stiffness of motion, stiffness in movement. Postural instability means there is a fear of fall and balance, problem related to balance. So it is a clinical syndrome characterized by tremors, akinesia or bradykinesia, rigidity and postural instability. Now let us define this properly. It is a neurodegenerative condition which is progressive, irreversible and has a clinical syndrome of tremors, bradykinesia, rigidity and postural instability. Fine. Now, the second part, let us see what is the cause of it. Now, we have seen this, the cause is lack of dopamine. Now, there is lack of dopamine which results in this condition. Now, this is also a condition. Now, if you understand, in order to understand this clinical syndrome, we need to understand the cause of it. Now, where does this dopamine come from? Now, this dopamine is being released at the level of substantia nigra par compacta. Now, what is this term? Now, to understand this term, this is one of the nuclei of basal ganglia. If I show you the diagram of basal ganglia, let me give you an idea. Now, if this is the lateral view of brain, fine, and if you remember, this is the part which is the corpus callosum. Now, if you can see, this is the brain, and this is the frontal lobe, this is the parietal lobe, this is the temporal lobe, and this is the occipital lobe, this is the lateral sulcus, and in the center of it, if we cut section of this brain, this is the lateral view of the brain, one hemisphere, you see that the corpus callosum is joining the two hemispheres together. It is in between. Now, just beneath the corpus callosum is the stratum, which is called as corpus stratum. This is the stratum. This green portion itself is the stratum. Now, this is a part of basal ganglia. This is a part of basal ganglia. Now, this surface itself is globus pallidus, one of the nuclei of the basal ganglia. This is the globus pallidus. Now, to see this is the part of thalamus. This portion, which is the brown portion which I am trying to show you, is the thalamus. And just below the thalamus is, as you know, subthalamic nuclei. Just below the thalamus is subthalamic nuclei, and this portion is substantia nigra, which is just beneath. So we have got this part is the corpus, or this is the stratum, which is made up of caudate nucleus and putamen. Stratum. Fine. This is globus pallidus. Globus pallidus. It is made up of two parts, globus pallidus internus and globus pallidus externus. Fine. This is thalamus. This is thalamus. This is subthalamic nuclei, and this is substantia nigra. It has also got two parts, par compacta and par reticula. Both of them has got different roles. Now, if you remember this anatomy part of basal ganglia, let me give you another view of it, those who are not understanding this math. Now, if I cut section, like if I cut section of this figure like this, if a cut section is done like this, so we will be able to see something in this form. Both the hemisphere in this one. Fine. Both the hemisphere will be seen. If you cut section and we take this, here we will be able to see the lateral ventricles. If you remember, these are the lateral ventricles, and this is the third ventricle. This is the third ventricle. Now, if you remember this part, you will be able to understand this herein was the thalamus. In between is the placement of a bean-shaped structure called thalamus, and just above the thalamus was caudate nucleus, and herein, if you can see this structure, you will be able to recognize this structure. This is putamen and globus pallidus. Putamen and globus pallidus. This is against the subthalamic nucleus, and this is again two parts, the substantia nigra par compacta. Fine. So if you can see, this is caudate nucleus, this is thalamus, this is putamen, this is globus pallidus internus, this is globus pallidus externus, this is subthalamic nuclei, this is substantia nigra, The inner part is par compacta, the outer part is par reticular. So you now understand what is this basal ganglia. They are basically subcortical nuclei, that is the nuclei which are deep inside the brain and which are important for the movement. They are responsible for initiating the movement. Right? So they are responsible for initiating of the movement. Right? And how they initiate this movement, let us study more about it. Right? Now, this substantia nigra, there is a defect over here in Parkinson's disease, where dopamine production or dopamine neurons, they are not being produced properly. There is lack of generation of dopamine at this point. This results in Parkinson's disease. Now, let us see, this was the anatomy part, let us see the physiology part. Now, if we try to understand, basal ganglia is responsible for movement or initiation of movement. So, you know that for this, the thalamus is responsible for producing movement. It produces or it runs excitatory neurons or projections, fine, and it brings upon the motion or movement. If this is the cortex, right? So it is responsible for bringing about the thalamus is responsible for bringing about the movement. Fine, it is through the excitatory neurons which generate specific glutamate, and it brings about the movement. Now, whenever this movement need to be checked, this movement need to be always checked. So, globus pallidus internus and substantia nigra par reticula, these both, they are responsible for giving an inhibitory projections. They give inhibitory projections to this thalamus. They give inhibitory projections to this to the thalamus through the release of GABA. Now, why this inhibitory projections are given to thalamus? Because in order to keep unwanted movements at bay. That means these inhibitory, they basically suppress thalamus so that the movement takes place smoothly and unnecessary movements are avoided. Fine. Now, whenever a cortex decides to plans for movement, so cortex give stimulation to the stratum. Stratum here means caudate nucleus and putamen. So it gives a cortical striatal pathway. Through cortical striatal pathway, it releases glutamate and it gives a stimulation to the stratum for the production of movement. Stratum, on the other hand, give inhibition through the release of GABA and inhibits the globus pallidus internus and substantia nigra par reticula, and this inhibition, it inhibits this, so the next motion doesn't take place. So there is loss of inhibition to that of thalamus, and thalamus produce the movement. So if I explain you again, you can see this. Whenever the movement need to be done, this is the cortex gives stimulation through corticostriatal pathway through the release of glutamate, and the striatal is the striatal give further inhibitory response to inhibition to globus pallidus internus and substantia nigra par reticula. This inhibition stops this pathway and activate this pathway. That is, thalamus is now free to produce the movement, whereas the inhibition is lost. This is how the movement takes place, or the movement is possible. Right? So, there is a role of substantia nigra par compacta. This is where the dopamine is produced. So, the dopamine which is produced gives an excitatory neurons to or excitation stimulus to striatum, and this further inhibits the role of substantia nigra par reticula and globus pallidus internus and stimulate the movement. So this is said to be the direct pathway. Direct pathway of basal ganglia or direct pathway of movement. How the movement takes place normally. Fine. So if you can see, it is the cortex, it stimulates the stratum inhibits the globus pallidus internus and it inhibits this movement. It stimulates the thalamus and it produces the movement uninterruptedly. And substantia nigra par compacta further enhances this movement. This is a direct pathway. Now let us see the indirect pathway. The second pathway is indirect pathway. Now in indirect pathway there is a role of globus pallidus externus, right, and subthalamic nuclei. In this, the globus pallidus externus inhibits the subthalamic nuclei through the release of GABA. And this subthalamic nuclei stimulates globus pallidus internus and substantia nigra par reticula. Fine. If I can show you in proper way, again if you can see, this is cortex. Cortex give a stimulatory or the release of glutamate, excitatory neurons to striatum. Fine. It gives an inhibitory response. It gives an inhibitory response to globus pallidus externus, which inhibit the substantia nigra nuclei, but it directly gives an excitatory neurons to substantia nigra or subthalamic nuclei, so that the activation of globus pallidus internus and substantia nigra par reticula takes place, which inhibit the thalamus. And thalamus now is not able to produce the movement. So you can see the inhibition to globus pallidus externus will inhibit the subthalamic nuclei, but the cortex will stimulate it and inhibit the movement. So here the movement will decrease or there will be no movement. But substantia nigra par compacta also has a role over here. It produces an inhibition or releases dopamine, which inhibit the striatum for this pathway. This inhibit the striatum for doing this pathway. Now what is this in nutshell? What happens here in Parkinson's? This is a normal mechanism of movement. Now what happens in Parkinson? In Parkinson, the direct pathway, which is said to be that this direct pathway becomes hypoactive, or I can say less active. Now if it is this direct pathway is less active, that means the movement will be less. There will be less of this movement taking place. But it becomes the indirect pathway become hyperactive. That is, there is more activity. So what will happen because of this? there will be less of movement. Now, the person who is suffering from this will be unable to initiate a movement. Why so? Because for the movement, the direct pathway is not so active, but the indirect pathway is more active, which will result in slowness of movement, freezing of movement, fine, or lack of movement will take place, fine, or lack of movement will take place. So this is very important. You will hear and see that there is Parkinson's is also been defined as a clinical syndrome of hypo and hyperactive pathway of movement of basal ganglia. This is also a definition. If you see from pathological point of view or the cause point of view, this is how it can be defined. There will be lack of movement just because of activation of indirect pathway. There will be activation of indirect pathway. Now, if we come to this is about the cause. If we come to the stages, now what is this Parkinson? So, if we come to the stages of Parkinson, there is 5 stages of Parkinson's. Stage 1. Now, stage 1 is a condition where the person is not aware that he is suffering from any problem. Now, in that stage, it is mostly not diagnosed in the stage 1. It is not at all diagnosed in stage 1. In stage 1, there will be just reduced arm swing. Fine. The person will be having difficulty in doing signatures. Fine. There will be, while communicating, there will be emotionless face. And if there will be beginning of sometimes resting tremors. Now, what is resting tremors? Resting tremors is typically pin rolling types. What is this? It is like the person will be doing this movement all throughout the time. This is not under his control, visual control, and only family recognizes this. This stage can only be diagnosed if family is very much conscious and he sees these conditions. And stage 2, it can take months to years to come to stage 2. In stage 2, this tremors become more obvious. They are now distinct. This can be seen properly now. Along with this, the person starts complaining of stiffness. I find myself stiff to do any movement while doing movement, or stiffness and slowness of movement. The persons who are around them, they say that the person is not able to do or doing the movement very slowly, or drinking water, he takes now 15 minutes to drink water. Then there is speech difficulty. The person is not able to speak properly. The other person is not able to understand what he is speaking. Right? He is sometimes having some balance issues. He is sometimes having difficulty in standing and walking. This is the second stage. This is the second stage in which these symptoms are more and diagnosis takes place. The person is then diagnosed and treatment can start in this stage. Right? The next stage is stage 3. Now, in stage 3, this, if I can say, the balance issues increases. Balance issue are more prominent. The person starts falling. Fear of fall is there. Fear of fall is there, as there is loss of postural reflexes. Now, what is this? Now, as soon as we are about to fall, what we try to do? We try to grab a thing and try to prevent ourselves from falling. But we see here that the person falls because of the slowness, he is not able to protect himself. So there is loss of postural reflexes. He is not able to grab any stuff or grab the table. As soon as we are about to fall, what we try to do? We try to grab a thing, grab a chair, grab a table, or grab a person who is standing in front of us so that we don't fall. But herein, there is history of falls are there. There is balance issue. The person is not able to stand standing independently. He will like to take a support, like a support of a wall or holding a hand of next person. So there is some kind of a postural problem here. Postural instability is prominent in the third stage. Postural instability is prominent in the third stage. Stage 4. In stage 4, there is assistance is required. Now, the person is now well aware of that he is having some problem. So he will take assistance of a walker or a cane or any aids for walking. For even standing also, standing he require an aid. Okay. So this is the major thing which happens, and the person starts. There is difficulty in doing daily activities, daily tasks. There is difficulty in doing daily tasks. And there is the stage 4, fifth, the last stage. Herein, he is totally dependent on others. That is, from he cannot stand alone, he cannot walk now, he will be dependent on wheelchair and dependent for all his tasks. And another important feature over here is dementia. He will suffer from dementia. That is, he will start forgetting things. There will be delusions and hallucinations. Herein, the person will have difficulty in recognizing things. I'll give you an example. If there is a rope which is present or which is kept on the floor, and he will say there is a snake, he will hallucinate it by saying there is a snake in the room. So you can see there will be delusions and hallucinations. There will be dementia, lack of or forgetfulness that will be there, and there will be cognition. There will be decline in cognition. Now, what is cognition? Now, cognition is the ability of a person to think. Now, it is about cognition is, if I can say, cognition is about alertness, whether you are alert to time, place, and person. Right? Where you are sitting at this time, what is the time at where you are at this place, what is the place, what is the time, whom are you talking to, the alertness of a person. It also includes memory of a person, whether it is a short-term memory or a long-term memory or an immediate memory. This comes under the category of cognition. Fine. It also comes in the form of executing tasks. Now, if I say that you need to write on a piece of paper, you will immediately take a pen, will take a paper and start writing. So, I have not given you instructions how to write, but you know how to write, you know how to execute a task. Right? So, these people, they find difficulty in executing a task. Then, if I ask them to drink water, take the bottle from the fridge and pour it in the glass and drink, they find it difficulty to execute it. Why so? Because going to the fridge, opening the fridge, or unscrewing the bottle, they find it difficult to execute. So they will be stuck in doing these activities. Then is mathematical calculations. There will be difficulty. They will be finding it very difficult to do any mathematical calculations. Like calculation is like if they go to a market and try to purchase a thing, it is for like 1 kg apple. It's for 120 rupees a kg. So if they buy 120, they don't know how much money will come in return. If they are giving 200 rupees, how much money he will get back, there will be a problem in calculating it. Fine. And then is writing or copying. Copying means writing is writing on a piece of paper. That will be also difficult because the person will be writing first initially good, and then this will go like something like this. Then he will go into micrographia. He will be not be able to make this spiral hollow. Fine. He will be having difficulty in copying any geometrical design. It will be difficult for him to copy any geometrical design. So this all comes in cognition. So what in cognition The person will be finding difficulty in is alertness, memory, executing tasks, mathematical calculations, writing, copying. This all will be difficult for him to do. Fine. And yes, the next thing, this was about the stages. The next thing which is very much important over here is, now there is, this is not, I have only discussed about Parkinson's disease, but in your syllabus you have got Parkinsonism. This is the term which has been introduced in your syllabus. Now once you understand Parkinson's, now I would like to introduce you with this term called Parkinsonism. The Parkinsonism is basically a clinic spectrum of disorder. It is not one disease, it is a spectrum of disorder, and in which there is difficulty or there is movement problems which is similar to that of Parkinson's disease, but it is a spectrum of disorder which has been classified into primary, secondary and atypical Parkinsonisms. The primary Parkinsonism is the classic Parkinson's disease which we have already discussed. Right? The disease resulting characterized by tremors, rigidity, there is bradykinesia or akinesia and postural instability. Right? So this is a classical Parkinson's. Now there is another condition called secondary, category called secondary Parkinsonism. Now, secondary Parkinsonism is a condition in which the presentation is similar to that of Parkinson's disease, but the reason is drug induced. It is irreversible. It is reversible, sorry. It is reversible. And primary Parkinson is irreversible. Here, the cause is because of the drug, like antipsychotic drugs. The person who are taking with this antipsychotic drugs, they block the dopamine receptors, so which results in the presentation of Parkinson's disease. So it is a drug induced, and if we stop these drugs, this can be reversed. Second is vascular conditions, like the persons who are suffering from stroke, especially from the medullary stroke or from the Pica syndrome or Ika syndrome. Medullary syndromes, they suffer with disease called Parkinson's. Right? So this is a condition secondary to primary condition. They are secondary to a primary condition, which is said to be secondary Parkinsonism. The third type is atypical Parkinsonism. Atypical Parkinsonism is basically these are the four conditions you have to study about. It has got Parkinson's feature, but there are other features also there which should be kept in mind while diagnosing it. The first one is the dementia with Lewy body. Dementia with Lewy body. Now, what does this mean? The characteristic feature here is dementia. The person in the stage 1 will come and tell us that he is suffering from he is forgetting things, he is not able to do his task, he is easily forgetting how to move around, or the normal travel route itself, or normal doing activities which he used to do in day-to-day life. He is finding it difficult to do. So the reason is there is a presence of abnormal protein called Lewy body, which is deposited at the level of in the brain, so which causes this dementia. Now, along with this, there are features of tremors, rigidity, and everything, but the dementia is very much in normal classical Parkinson's, it comes in the 4th stage or 5th stage. Here it is in the 4th stage itself. Dementia is the main problem here. The second condition is multiple system atrophy. Now, along with the Parkinson's disease, you will find that there are multiple systems are involved. Multiple systems include the autonomic nervous system may be involved. Now, if the autonomic nervous system is involved, what happens? What is the role of autonomic nervous system? Autonomic nervous system is for fight and flight response. That is, it brings about. It has got two pathways: sympathetic and parasympathetic system in here. Sympathetic, which is responsible for constriction of everything, and which brings about what it increases in our palpitations, it increases respiratory rate, and it increases sweating, and wherein these systems are involved, and a parasympathetic response is just opposite of it. It brings about relaxation of or decreasing the heart rate, vasodilatations. Vasodilatations takes place, and it is good in digestion. So this there is a problem related to autonomic nervous system, bowel and bladder response changes, problems, bowel and bladder problems. Person say is suffering other than the Parkinson's conditions. There is also a cognitive decline in this, right? And there is also speech disorders. Speech disorder. Multiple system involvement is there, speech disorder will be there. The person will have a typical kind of depending upon motor, along with the speech, motor disturbances will be there. So that means overall, all the systemic features will also come, as well as the motor and speech features will also come. The next is progressive supranuclear palsy. Now, as the name says, supranuclear is related with eye. Now, herein you see there is a prominent eye defect is seen. There is a nystagmus of the eye takes place, and the person finds it very difficult to see downwards. That is why it is called as progressive supranuclear palsy, and the person has got balance issues. So if there is an eye disturbances, the person also suffers from balance issues. So the typical prominent features over here is nystagmus of the eye, balance issues, and stiffness of movement. So if you can see in atypical type, the typical features are less prominent, but the other features are more prominent. Like you can see, dementia is more prominent here. Herein you can see autonomic system and bowel and bladder is more prominent as compared to the other movement. Fine. And here you see there will be progressive supranuclear palsy. The eye and balance is more of a problem. Now there is another condition which is called cortico-basal syndrome or degeneration. This is here where you can see the cortico, that is the motor area is involved, as well as the balance area is involved. Can you see the motor area as well as the balance area? Both degeneration takes place. There will be difficulty in movement, and there will be cognition is more involved. Dementia is common, and cognition is involved. Motor movements are involved. Balance is an issue. And there is another very typical phenomena which is called as alien limb phenomena. Here, what is this? The person is not, he doesn't know that one of the limb is moving. So I don't know whether he will say, I don't know whether my limb is moving or not. That is called as alien limb phenomena, which is a characteristic feature of cortical basal degeneration or syndrome. So this is a type of Parkinsonism. The Parkinsonism is basically a spectrum of disorder, right? And herein you see there's a primary is classical. Primary is the classical Parkinson's disease, which we have already discussed. The secondary is drug-induced or vascular, and the third is the atypical type, which includes dementia with Lewy body, multiple system atrophy, progressive supranuclear palsy, and cortico-basal syndrome, where you find alien limb syndrome and apraxias. Apraxias is unable to do any skilled movements, which is a very prominent feature over. This is the introduction of Parkinson's. In the next video, we will be covering Parkinson's through a PPT. Thank you guys.